We are live. Okay, I'm not sure if you're live or not. I hope that we are live. David, how are you?
I am doing very, very well. How are you doing, Luca, today?
I'm doing great, but until I see if people can actually hear us, I'm not going to be satisfied. But guys, if you can hear us, please write in the chat.
We
You
want
can
to
hear.
know if you can hear us. So if you could write in the comments, that would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, it's yes.
Victor is saying
Uh,
hola.
I think the people
So
can
well,
hear us.
yeah,
Okay, guys, if you can hear a
yeah.
very well-rounded Italian accent, it's because I'm Italian and I'm famous for speaking a lot of languages with native sounding accent. But today is not it's not the case. What do you think, David? Is it strange to hear me speak like
Yes,
this?
I'm also very, very famous for having a perfect accent in English, as you can tell. Yeah, from the way that I am speaking.
But you were born in
Teresa
California.
says yes.
You were born in California. What? Okay, we're messing around with you guys,
All right, we're messing
obviously,
around.
right? But you can
Byron's
already
laughing his
tell.
face off.
Yes. Okay, people see I hear you excellently. Excellently. You got Teresa says yes, you can hear us.
Wonderful. Okay.
You got
Everybody
Byron.
can hear us.
Byron,
Good.
I talked to Stu J. Ray with David, by the way, so it's going to happen finally. You will see an interview with me and Stu, and then there's more things coming. So because
Yeah.
Byron has been asking me about this for like
Oh,
at least
okay. Yeah,
for a
it's in the works.
few years. It's in the works.
Something to look
Max says
forward to.
hello. Where are you guys in the world? Just write in the chat. Byron says, brilliant, awesome. Okay, guys, so we're messing around a little bit. I was pulling an Italian accent, which is actually which is the way I was supposed to speak, and I used to speak back in the day when I was speaking English. So I was great accents. That's great. Thank you very much. We're gonna play a
Thank
little
you,
bit with
Emmanuel.
accents today. But also we're gonna show you actually how to being able to produce acts, well, better said, to speak a foreign language, any foreign language, with a great accent. So we're going to tackle the psychological aspect of speaking with a native accent, having a good pronunciation, and so much more. So you say here West, people are saying San Diego. Oh, we know San Diego. David is from San
San
Diego.
Diego is a good city.
Just recently
We
back
like
from
San Diego.
Portugal. We got West Midlands, the UK. We have Uruguay, North Carolina. Got a lot of
Uruguay.
people from all over the world. Thank you guys for
Very
coming.
cool.
Thank you for the enthusiasm. As always, we have a lot of fun. Someone says, Flavio says, vorrei togliermi l'accento italiano in inglese. We're going to talk about that. Repubblica Dominicana, Cyprus, Roma,
Again.
from the same place where
Roma.
I am. Iceland. Oh, that's what's
Wow,
Maya.
awesome.
This is the one place I want to visit. Possibly within the 2026, I'd like to visit two places. One is Iceland, the other is Japan. Well, let's see if we can make it happen.
Let's
Anyway,
make both happen. How does that sound?
make both happen. And Bologna, of course. Bologna is like the capital of Polyglotary 2026. So, guys,
2026.
you're welcome. All right. So,
All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Thanks for being with us.
Welcome. It's time to start with our webinar. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen today. We have more or less 2 hours. So we are going to go, David and I, through a webinar. It's an exclusive webinar. Watch it today. And you have watch. And when you watch it today, take notes. It's going to be online for 7 days until Sunday, next Sunday. So if for whatever reason you happen to be on YouTube and say, oh, there's a live show, and you happen to watch this until now, just make sure, hey, I'm going to watch the rest because it's not going to be here forever. Actually, it's going to be here only for a week. And after the webinar, which is going to last more or less 45 minutes, depending on how much David and I are going to rant, then we're going to open, we're going to receive your questions.
We prefer the term pontificate.
Pontificate is even a better term. Then we are going to answer your questions. So if you have, first of all, take notes if you can, because I always say that when you take notes, grab a piece of paper. I always have something here. And take notes because it's going to help you focus better and re-elaborate the information. It's not even a theory, it's scientific. Science shows that if you use your hand, if your hand right while you're listening, you pay much more attention. And then if you hear something interesting, jot down a question, and then you can ask us later. We're going to be into
Mm-hmm.
slide mode now, so we're not going to see your questions because otherwise it's distracting. Thank you very much for all the wonderful questions, but we need to focus on this, and then we're going to answer all your questions. So David, are you excited? And you guys, are you
Very
guys excited
yeah.
about this? People have been asking us about something related to accents, whether it's like a webinar, a masterclass, etc. We have a lot of good news for you today. So let's get started. George says, as if I don't need to do chores while listening to you. Well, then George, then if you have to run somewhere, you met George in Taipei, right? Wonderful guy.
Yes, yeah, we hung out multiple times and we had a great time.
Yeah, George is the man. George is one of the students of the academy. There's quite a few in the chat as well, and we're having fun. Recently, David and I and all the students with another program that we're running, which is called the Momentum Club, which is a continuation club from the workshop that we did. It's going really well, and we're very happy about all this, and there's more happening in 2026. Without further ado, guys, let's get started. And I'm going to show you here accent mastery webinar. So we're going to talk about how to master an accent in a foreign language. But before we talk about that, before we start the presentation, the question to you is, what is the one struggle, the biggest struggle when it comes to accents? Can you write in the chat, what are you struggling with? If you're struggling with anything, for example, are you good with accents? Do people compliment you for the wonderful accent you have? Are you self-conscious? On the other hand, maybe you have a very thick accent, you tell yourself, damn, I got this thick accent I can't get rid of. And I'd like to speak like a native, like an Italiano or like a Français. So intonation. Someone says intonation. There's MGX Breu. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but that's the name. Someone says, I'm good in Spanish. Be understood as muchos as possible. Okay. So someone wants to be understood because sometimes, if people don't understand you, well, then that's a problem. We're talking here about getting a native-like accent, but sometimes, right, David, we were talking about this before, it's just about being understood and survive, right?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. It entirely depends on the severity, let's say, of your accent, what your particular situation is, whether your language is a nice to have or a need to have, right? All of those things kind of play into it.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
if you really need to improve your accent, do you know how to do it? And that's the question that we're going to begin to answer in today's webinar.
To answer, yeah, this is just a taste of what's to come. Victor says multiple accent types in Portugal make it a challenge. Someone says, I say the right words. Actually, Isabel says, I said the right words in Spanish, but people don't understand me, I guess. You say my because I don't, but the right emphasis, I don't put the right emphasis in the right places or the right place. But yeah, this is another important thing. Stress where you put the emphasis. Judith says, the rhythm of the language. Lila, who's another student who's taken part in the MC, what we call MC Momentum Club, having no idea how far off I am. If I'm not wrong, Lila, you're sending us your beautiful text in German, and I think they sound great, honestly, if that's what you're referring to. How far, I have no idea how far off I am. This is another thing, very important thing we're going to address. You need some sort of feedback. Either it's feedback you give yourself or feedback that someone is going to give you. Here we have a classic problem, French R, German R, French intonation, the infamous in French. And there's a lot of many other problems here. So all of these problems are very common. We're going to address them. And we're going to have fun. Last one is France Gallo. She comes often also. When I speak English to an English person, she replies, oh, you have an American accent. Okay, well, I don't know whether that's a problem or not, but that's a good thing, right? So let's get started. So we asked, we're going to go into presentation mode. There you go. David, so what are these?
Okay.
What are these?
So thank you to all of you, first of all, for sharing with us the challenges that you have been experiencing. And in Luca and my experience, there are really four main categories that people deal with in terms of the challenges that they run into when trying to improve their pronunciation. So the first one is native language interference. And this is obviously a big one. And it might seem obvious, but to many people, they don't necessarily think about it in these terms. all that an accent really is, that is to say, a foreign accent, when you sound foreign in your target language or languages, it really just means that you're using the sounds and patterns of your native language in the foreign language. Now, like I said, this would seem obvious, but most people don't think about it like this. So if I have an American accent in German, it means I'm speaking German with American sounds and intonation patterns, etc. Right? I think that makes sense. The next
Yeah.
one.
It does. The last one, the next one is a lack of targeted practice. I'll address this one, and it means that quantity counts, but quality counts. What does it mean to focus on improving your accent? A lot of people do not know. What happens normally is that, oh, I'm just going to listen to it. I'm just going to imitate and try to do my best, and then let's see what happens. But the reality, David got a smirk on his face every time. It's slightly changed. We do this all the time, by the way. Change intonation or accent, etc. He can pick it up as a native speaker, but he's also a very trained accent coach, so he knows that. So we have fun. Anyway, going back to what I was saying before, lack of targeted practice means, once again, the strategies. You have to know how to do this, because just listening and speaking for the sake of speaking and listening is not going to change things. You need some sort of feedback loop, and you need some targeted practice that helps you actually, as you will see in a bit, notice things so that you can correct them. Otherwise, you're going to be speaking with the same accent for the rest of your life.
Precisely. And at this juncture, pardon, Luca, I think it's important to mention that targeted practice is something that's very specific. It means that you get some form of input, then you output, then you get feedback, and your feedback is then fed back into your next input and output session, such that you get this kind of beneficial circle where each time you're getting better and better. In addition, targeted input really needs to be focused on your particular language background, learning your particular target language. If you have a one-size-fits-all, improve your German accent pronunciation program, but it doesn't take into consideration that you are a Spanish native speaker versus a French native speaker, it's not going to be the whole shebang. It's not going to cover everything that you specifically need in order to achieve the accent that you want to achieve. So we need to take your language background into consideration for it to truly be a program that will be, good for you in particular.
Yes, if you see me going up and down, it's just because I forgot to basically plug in my computer. We don't want my computer to die, because if my computer dies, everything dies, gets shut down, and we ain't gonna have no webinar.
So I'll continue while Luca's getting that taken care of. So
I sorted it out. Yeah, I fixed it. Thank God.
Great. Okay. Would you like to do the next one then? Fear of making mistakes, Luca.
Yeah. Sorry. Fear of making mistakes. So it's normal to be scared of making mistakes when it comes to pronunciation. Raise your hands if you're self-conscious about your accent. So when you're trying to speak, you say, "Oh my gosh!"
I mean, I definitely was initially.
I'm raising my hand. Virtually, guys, you're probably all raising your hands. Sometime in your life, you've felt self-conscious about the way you pronounce sounds, the way you speak, your accent, and everything in between. We're going to talk about this in a second. Fossilized errors. This is the big one. I remember an Indian guy who I've been coaching for 13 years, and this Indian guy came, very nice, very, very nice person. He said, "I've been living in the United States for 20 years," and he had a very, very, very thick Indian accent. And he told me, "Hey, I want to speak like an American." And I said, "Well, you can, but the problem is that maybe the game is not worth a candle," to use an old expression, meaning that sometimes the main problem that humans have is not that they cannot learn, is that it's really difficult to unlearn what you have already learned. And when it's fossilized, then it's like a Gordian knot. It's possible to untie the knot, but it's difficult. So normally, if you start learning a language from scratch and you develop all the things we're going to tell you today, it's better. But if you've been speaking a language for a little bit and you still have some flexibility, you can do a lot when it comes to correcting your pronunciation, improving in general. But if you've been speaking a language for 30 years, and it's more difficult. The more time you've been speaking your target language, the more difficult it is to unravel and untie the Gordian knots, so to speak, right? Rewire your system. Because unfortunately, so this can be a big advantage or it can be a disadvantage, then the brain develops phonetic patterns pretty quickly. So when you learn, for example, the expression for example, once you've learned it that way, then it's difficult to unravel it because the brain learns chunks of language. And then you have to untangle all this Gordian knot or Gordian nuts, so to speak, right? So that's another thing that happens all the time, fossilized mistakes. And speaking of fossilized mistakes, here I am. You can probably barely recognize me. This is some 30 years ago with my wonderful, brilliant Susan, my English teacher, American teacher. She's from Chicago. And here we are in my parents' place, one afternoon in 1993, if I'm not wrong. And basically, when I started working with her, and I uttered the first sentences and words, etc., I said something like I was speaking like this, but much worse, because I could not even say words. And one day I say like, this book is not good enough. So she goes like, what do you mean? And I wrote the word that I was trying to pronounce, and it turns out it was enough. Now, me being Italian at that age, at 12, that English was the first, like the only thing I had seen was Italian. And famously, in Italian, you pronounce almost all the words that you see, with a few exceptions. So you write, you see words, written words, they are pronounced exactly the same way. But in English, it's a completely different story. English spelling, as you know, is atrocious. So what happened is that I could barely speak. Well, first of all, because I hadn't heard the language. This is a common mistake. I had read a lot of text at school. To raise your hands if this has happened to you. You read a lot of text, but you don't hear the language enough. So you tend to read it, and you tend to filter that. What David was saying, David raised his hand, like you tend to use the best thing you have, which is your native language. And this is, by the way, also something that happened with the Dina, a Russian girl who organized a conference. I went to Moscow, and her English was great. Her pronunciation was very bad. And she told me, Luca, how can I improve my pronunciation? What happened? And then turns out that she had just basically read in English and never heard the language. So you have to, as you will hear today, you have to listen a lot. You have to listen and read, and you have to do many things. But my story with English is just to want to tell you that the reason why I'm showing you this is because I was at the time convinced that I would never ever speak any foreign language well, let alone speaking it with a very great accent. And then, I proceeded on learning French, Spanish, German, Russian, many other languages. And I want to emphasize one more time that this has nothing to do with being a genius. When people hear me say that I speak a lot of languages, either you are met with skepticism. Like a guy once said, really, what level do you have? Like you can say a couple of sentences, which is totally understandable. And also you're met with, you got a lot of praise. You're showered with praise, but people don't really know what it means to speak a language. So the bottom line is that you can do this if you know how to do it, if you want to do it, because this is also important. And then you just have to do it, as we will show you in a second. So in a nutshell, it all started with English, with that inaug turned into enough, and enough with me now. Let's talk about David. So who's this handsome fellow there? There's three handsome fellows.
But I really do think that Luca's story is a success story, right? Because it just goes to show you that you can start from humble beginnings and completely change the way that you speak. And I mean, Luca is oftentimes taken for a native speaker of American English, and of course, that's his intention. I was most certainly not taken for a native speaker of German when I first started learning. I started learning at around the age of 17, and then I went on to university, studied German as well. I started doing linguistics. I really got into phonetics and phonology. I thought, okay, if I become the best linguist in the world, I'm going to become the best polyglot in the world. And what I soon found out was that there are a lot of great linguists who are bad polyglots and a lot of good polyglots who are bad linguists, in the sense that they don't know the first thing about the science of the language, and yet they still somehow manage to sound really, really good. Whereas you have others who know everything there is to know about the science of producing sounds in terms of, as I said, phonetics, phonology, combinatorial linguistics, etc., and yet they're not very good at imitating sounds, and they don't sound particularly authentic. So at some point, fortunately, after a lot of experimentation, I found kind of the right formula, the right combination. But one of the biggest things was increasing my listening and increasing my ability to pay attention to my surroundings. And that's one of the biggest things that Luca and I are both very good at because we've trained it over the years and that we've turned into a science. And that's the whole point behind what it is that we are presenting to you guys today. So we can move on from there.
Lovely, David. Okay, so welcome to the webinar. So stay until the end because there is a surprise. We're just going to tease you now, but there's a masterclass that we put together. You're going to see, you're going to get a taste of what's to come today, and there's much more to it than meets the eye. People have been asking us about this. They've been asking me, and also now recently within the academy, because people have been following my work. And David, we've been running two very successful programs, and people have been asking, "What about pronunciation? You guys are great at this, and then we'll just make it happen." So here it is. But before we start, again, your micro commitment here is the following: if we show you a simple 10-minute routine to improve your accent during this webinar, will you promise to try it at least once next week, every day of the week? So please write it in the chat and write hell yeah. Okay, hell yeah. Is it simple? Hell yeah. Because it's, once again, knowing things, you can hear the stuff, you can take notes, etc. But once again, as David was pointing out, you can be a wonderful linguist understanding all the mechanics, the ins and outs of a foreign language and the sound patterns and whatnot. But if you don't put in the work, you ain't gonna learn. So hell yeah, hell yeah. I can see here Julia says hell yeah. Judith says hell yes, hell yeah. Vila says hell yeah. There's a lot of hell yes.
I see a lot of hell yes. Awesome.
Hell yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so hell yeah,
that's what we like
guys.
to see.
Yes.
Yuppers. Great,
Absolutely.
George.
George is the man. Yuppers. Okay, I'll start today. Someone says I'll start today. They don't have to wait. So we don't want to wait until Monday. We want to start right here, right now. Thank you, guys. Wonderful. So, claro que
Awesome.
yes. Yuperuni. Okay, guys. Awesome. Let's get started. Let's get into the nitty-gritty details of this. We're very excited to show you stuff. David, what is the stuff? We always refer to this, by the way, because this is about, not only about accent mastery, it's about skill mastery. What is this stuff for those who don't know yet, David?
So the most important thing here is notice that mindset, while being at the bottom, is also the largest section. And the reason for that is that mindset really sets the tone for everything else. If you don't think that you're allowed, as it says here, to sound like a native, if you don't think that it's achievable, if you think you'll never get there, then you won't. One of my favorite quotes is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
You're right. You're right.
So if you think you can do it, you will be able to do it, and you will do it. If you think you can't do it, then that is a I like to call it self-licking ice cream. Self-fulfilling prophecy is the actual term. Then you absolutely will not. So you need to have the right mindset. You need to believe in yourself that you can absolutely do this. The next thing beyond that is self-management. You need to be able to structure your practice in a way that is going to allow you to systematically improve. So saying, well, I think I'll do a little of this and a little of that is not enough. That's not going to cut it. You need to get organized. And then finally, you need to do very specific things within that organizational schedule, including specific types of exercises and using specific tools. All of those things are part of the, let's just say, system that Luca and I have put together to make this easier for you guys.
Yes. So we have mindset, self-management, and learning. Remember, a lot of content and a lot of strategies in school, universities, etc., focus on learning, but the self-management part and the mindset part are really, really important. So we can't stress this enough, especially when it comes to mindset. And that's the first pillar we're going to address right now. Now, raise your hands, virtual hands, or better, write in the chat. Who knows Stephen Krashen? Have you ever heard of Stephen Krashen, who's very famous for the input hypothesis, but not only, okay? So Stephen Krashen, David raised his hand. He knows Stephen Krashen. Good lad. So
Good lad,
Good,
that.
good lad. So Stephen Krashen is famous for uh, Stephen Krashen is famous for his input hypothesis, but he also talks about a very interesting, other very interesting things. In particular, he talks about the affective filter. Now, maybe you've heard about this affective filter. It's a psychological part of learning a language. And basically, he says that he proposed this affective filter hypothesis, according to which we're all physically capable of acquiring an excellent accent because we all have a phonatory system. And if you can hear these sounds, for example, can you tell that are different? If you can tell, you can already have everything you need in order to pronounce anything. If you can tell that Cape Cod, that this C is different, k, you can already try to say k, whether English is your native language or not, whether you have these sounds in your phonatory system, in your sound inventory of your language, k. You can tell that's different, right? Cape Cod, and yet it's written the same. That's why sometimes it can be a little bit, what? Cape Cod? They sound different? Yes, they do, for a lot of reasons. So we have the physical capacity of hearing sounds, and we have the physical capacity of producing sounds. The problem, though, when it comes to speaking with a great accent or great pronunciation, is not our capacity of producing sounds. It's a psychological problem. It's a psychological barrier. So unconsciously, we choose not to speak with a great accent due to the deep psychological reasons such as fear of mockery, anxiety about losing your identity, discomfort with sounding different from our peer group. And this is exactly what happened to me when I was learning English. Now, back in school, I was speaking like this, or even worse. Then what happened? I started working with Susan. And then when I went back to the class, I started speaking more like this. Now, what happened is that people were kind of taken aback, but also kind of the reaction was not a very positive one. They were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I still remember they were doing this sound, yeah, yeah. They were imitating me sounding nasal because when I speak English, this called voice placement. I sound much more nasal here than I would sound in Italiano. Italiano mi esce tutto dalla bocca da qua. It comes from the front. In American English, it's a little bit different depending on the region. But the bottom line is that they started mocking me. I could not give a damn about that, meaning I was steadfast, focused. I wanted to sound like an American. I wanted to be like, was not even sounding, it was being like an American. I was watching like Un'Americana a Roma. Alberto Sordi is a very famous actor. There's a movie that he wanted to be an American. He was eating all American things. I was like Alberto Sordi, but I wanted to sound like an American. Was watching a lot of movies. And that trumped, so to speak, this anxiety, social pressure of conforming, right? Conforming to this group of people. No, you have to sound like this because we sound like this and you have to sound like this as well. So this is one of the reasons why, this is Davide Gemello, who knows Podcast Italiano, had the same exact thing. When I recount the story, he always says the same. Davide Gemello speaks excellent American English, almost like a native. David can testify, he was there.
I spent the last 3 weeks with him. Every single day we spoke English, and his English is excellent. Yes.
Exactly. Now, proof that this is a psychological problem more than a mechanical problem is the fact, and this was proven by an experiment I think in India, is that it's often easier to imitate a foreign accent in your native language, right? For example, an Italian doing a French accent or an American accent, rather than that Italian trying to speak American English directly. So, for example, very often you have now ora sto cerco di parlare con accento americano. Quindi quando gli italiani possono parlare effettivamente così, ma è molto più facile. It's much easier for an Italian to speak like this rather than speak American English directly. And David pointed out when we were talking about this that, David, it's much easier also because you don't have to think about the words, right? You're speaking in your own native language, right?
Exactly. The cognitive load is much lower. I always talk, if you know me, if you see my videos, you know I always talk about cognitive load. Obviously, if you only have to think about the accent and not about the grammar or the words, then it's a lot easier. But it's also because you're clowning around and everyone knows you're clowning around. And so the stakes are low, as Luca was just saying, meaning that you can't really make a fool of yourself Whereas if you actually try to speak the foreign language with a proper accent, then you feel, actually it's much less than you think, but you feel like people might judge you. And in some cases, like Luca was saying, people do judge you for sounding too authentic. And it's not the first time I've heard this. I've heard this story from so many students.
Yeah. So and some people just give up. Just they can't resist the pressure, and they go like, okay, I'm going to conform to my group. And this is also because you're leaving, so to speak. It's a tribal thing. Human beings are tribal at its core. So speaking once again, speaking a language with a great accent is in a way embrace another identity. It doesn't mean to leave the identity that you have, but it means to embrace another identity, another tribe on top of the one you already belong to. And this is the first thing to address. It's a very, very important thing. If that barrier is on subconsciously, no matter what you do, you can do accent reduction stuff, you can go to training, you can spend all your time trying to listen and imitate, then the foreignness in your accent is going to stay there because it's part of your subconscious stance towards the language. And also it's called voice placement. For example, when I speak like this is my voice placement is on the front. Now it's on the, apart from the way I'm pronouncing words, it all comes from here, from the front of my mouth. Because in Italian we have A, E, I, O, U. Sentite quanto è bella la melodia dell'italiano. Sounds from here. When I'm speaking English, the voice goes back. The sound here, what you see is a resonator. So this is a subconscious thing. I'm placing you can hear it directly if I speak with this accent. I will speak. If I speak like this sounds French. Perché le persone, for example, if I were an Italian trying to imitate a French accent, I would work on here. Perché comunque le persone parlano così? Bah, non ho idea, però parlano così.
Notice how his facial expression also automatically changes.
Yeah, and the reason
that's actually an important aspect.
This is another very important aspect. It's voice placement, but it's a subconscious thing. You move the entire system moves. Si por ejemplo hablo español, ¿no? If for example I'm speaking Spanish de esta manera, in this way. Speaking Spanish this way, ¿por qué? And if you can also see, I feel like it's difficult for me to stick to English because Spanish words come out. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is the fact that speaking in a foreign language is an experience. It's a mental approach. It's the entire system that focuses on that. We're going to show you the techniques, but the mindset is really important. The mental approach, the way you speak a language, the way you live it, the way you express yourself is done through a different system. Phonetory system, yes, but it's a mindset thing. So remember, we insist so much on this affective filter because this is the one thing that makes a huge difference between people who get a great accent and people who don't get a great accent in a foreign language, no matter what they do, right? So here is a breakdown of, we often have a surprising ability to imitate various accents. We've proven it to you guys. Maybe later, try to choose any language and try to speak in your own native language, imitating the accent of that language. I don't know. If you want to try to speak like this, maybe if you're American and you're learning Italian, try to speak like this and see, exaggerate as much as you can, you will see. And then the reluctance is not about ability, it's about social perception, and it's about there's a powerful social force there that is called group identity. Nobody talks about that. This is really, really important, right? When I speak American English, I feel like an American. I act and I use hands, and my facial expressions are very different than if I were speaking Italian. Se parlassi in italiano starei tutto il giorno a muovere le mani, anche se è uno stereotipo, ma è una maniera completamente diversa di esprimersi. It's a completely different way of expressing myself, right? The man here, Stephen Krashen, my conjecture is, he said it very succinctly, is that accent is acquired rapidly, but it's not performed because we do not feel like members of the group that uses it. Stephen Krashen. One other example of this is the fact, raise your hands, if you have drunk some alcohol in your life or still drinking it, if you're a little bit tipsy, then all these, problems you think you have of people judging you go away, and you express yourself in a language much more fluently than you would if you had all these barriers. Even accent-wise. Why? Well, because your mental barriers or this filter is down, so you can liberate your, unleash your language force that you have in you. And this also impacts the way you express yourself. You care about, when you're tipsy or drunk, tipsy is better than drunk, is you just don't care. You just want to communicate. You focus on expressing rather than expressing. You don't care if people judge you for the accent, the words you're using, etc. So once again, psychological part is really, really
one of my favorite examples of this is I was with Luca in Poland for a whole month this year, 2 times 2 weeks more or less. We were filming things. Maybe you guys saw a couple of videos that we did. But in Poland, in Polish, you have this very interesting intonation pattern. So, for example, when somebody says "good morning," it's "dzień dobry," "dzień dobry," "do widzenia," right? And you have the da 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 da, right? Which I noticed immediately. That was the first thing when I first started learning Polish. Immediately noticed that, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds really cool," and I immediately started doing it. I know people, and I'm sure Luca, who has spent quite a bit of time in Poland, knows people who have been there for years and still don't actually do that, right? They don't actually imitate that pattern. Is that correct, Luca?
That's very correct. As David was, you were training on that. Dzień dobry, do widzenia, dzień dobry. Yeah. So so it's true, but it also indicates, it's an indicator that some people are really interested in sounding very good in a foreign language like you. You're really interested not only in speaking well, but also speaking with a great accent. While other people couldn't give an iota, as you say, couldn't just care. They don't care. Like my cousin, she's wonderful, but she speaks English exactly as she would speak exactly as she speaks Italian. And there's nothing wrong with that, because she just wants to keep her identity. She doesn't even think she has to put on a different accent. She just literally speaks like this, like, "Hey, let's go to the cinema. It's going to be great." And she loves it. So there's nothing wrong with sounding a foreign. Actually, we're just talking about how to sound better if you want to. But once again, if you're intelligible, meaning people can understand perfectly, you have correct pronunciation. So let's say you don't make very bad mistakes of that hamper comprehension. It's all good. It's all very good. Actually,
Yes.
an Italian accent can be sexy. Can be just like when they say, "Oh my God, you sound French. You sound so sophisticated." I don't know if it's true, David, that in America British accent is very sophisticated within the same language.
Oh yes, no, absolutely. I would most definitely say that you're treated differently if you have a British accent versus an American accent. But I think it is important to stress that what Luca and I are talking about is only for those individuals who do want to improve their accent and sound more native. There's nothing wrong with having an accent as long as it's not so egregiously severe that people
Exactly.
cannot understand you, right? and that's fine, right? In that particular case. But if you do want to improve your accent, and if it is a point of kind of a sore point for you, what do you need to do? Let's start talking about some skills and
Yes.
strategies.
Let's do. By the way, Brian, it's being drunk all the time. I can't say that. I've noticed. Well, I said tipsy, not drunk. If you're drunk, you don't even remember what happened the previous day. Anyway, so let's get into it now. Now that we've addressed the mindset thing, let's talk about skills and strategies, the nitty-gritty details of what it takes, the kind of training that it takes. And David and I are going to walk you through the 4 core principles. I'm going to address the first two, and then David is going to address number 3 and number 4. Now, start from the beginning. Pronunciation is like a Gordian knot, the Gordian knot I was talking about before. And if you develop bad habits, it's going to be exceedingly difficult to unlearn or untie or I don't know if you can say unwire your phonetic patterns, your sound patterns. So I've learned this lesson the hard way when I was learning Swedish. And when I made the first YouTube video, the infamous YouTube video back in the 22nd, it was the 22nd of May 2008, I was a little bit disappointed by my Swedish, by the reaction that I got, because I was convinced that I spoke well, because normally when it comes to learning sounds, etc., I think I'm good. But then I got a lot of flack for that and say, "Hey, you don't sound very very good in Swedish." And then I realized I completely disregarded the not only the intonation system but the sound system of Swedish, which is a little bit different. It was the first time that I was tackling a language with a different system. Let's say it's a semi-tonal language, meaning that, for example, some words can be pronounced in have different intonation, a different intonation. For example, on then, on then. Can you tell the difference? There's a difference there. It's written the same, exactly the same. On then, on then. And all this stuff, it's called accent 1 and accent 2. Completely disregarded that, sounded very foreign. And then when I tried to go back and I try to correct that, now I never really succeeded in sounding almost like a native Swedish, and that's perfectly okay, because I had been speaking the language for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And I told myself, okay, Luca, you can spend the whole day trying to sound more Swedish if you want to, but it was not worth it. So, but the mere fact that I realized that you have accent 1 and accent 2, something I had completely disregarded, I started doing some phonetic training and I improved my accent a lot. Now, do I sound like a native in Swedish? Not at all. Have I greatly improved my accent? Yes. Why? Because I become conscious of that. Starting from the beginning, if you're learning a language from scratch, we highly recommend you focus on sound patterns from the get-go, because it's going to pay off handsomely in the long run. Second thing is,
a lot of courses, sorry, Luca, but a lot of courses do not cover pronunciation very much, except for a little bit at the beginning, and they certainly generally don't take your native language into consideration. Once again, it's a one-size-fits-all thing, so that's why we stress it so much.
Yeah, it's a very important thing, because when you learn a foreign language, you always have to consider your first language, right? And as David was pointing out. And the second thing is, you have to find the way to notice things, because what happens is that we can't hear ourselves, right? We have a hard time. Sometimes oh, is that me? You're listening to your own recording and say, I can't tell whether this sounds good or not. Sometimes you have minimal pairs, for example. You can't tell, oh, this is a D, this is a T, etc., etc. And you need a system that allows you to create some sort of feedback where, oh, I'm realizing this is wrong. Then, of course, you also need feedback from someone else. We're going to talk about that. But anything that will make your brain notice, so we're going to show you in a second in a demo, in a live demo, is gold for improving your accent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And this is something that absolutely can be trained systematically and should be trained systematically. But more about that later. Okay. So in addition, you need to take a top-down approach. This is incredibly important, because when people work on pronunciation, they have a tendency to work too much on, if they work at all, but they work too much on individual sounds. And not enough on rhythm of phrases and entire sentences. And we're going to give you an example of that in just a little bit here. But this is so important that it can actually entirely affect your ability or other people's ability to understand you. So my favorite example of this is, even among native speakers, we were talking about the difference between American and British English, and obviously there are many different variants of each one of those. But I distinctly remember being in Prague last year and being at a bar and hearing somebody speak. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What language? I wasn't really paying attention. I was like, I don't know what language that is. That's funny. And at like 10 minutes later, I listened again more closely. And then it's all of a sudden I realized that was English. But I did not notice, I did not recognize it as such, because it was such a thick, it was a very, very foreign to me variant of British English that had specific intonation patterns that I was just not familiar with. And then at some point I focused, and then I was able to kind of pick out the pieces, but it was still quite difficult. Why? Because those are intonation patterns that I'm simply not used to. Even being a native speaker of English, if somebody's speaking a very foreign variant, right? If you go up into the Highlands of Scotland, for example, there are plenty of examples, some variants of Irish English, then they're very difficult to understand if you're not used to them, right? And that's why focusing on rhythm and the rhythm of the specific variant that you would like to speak is so incredibly important.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, and finally, it's important to get quality feedback, and that's obviously professional feedback, right? That's relatively simple, right?
Yes. Yes,
It's
and with
not
that,
feedback from your mom. Hey, doing great, honey. Which is also great to get, don't get me wrong.
of course it is. So we're gonna address here our the accent mastery top-down system, what we call the accent mastery top-down system that works from from intonation, which is the top, towards pronunciation. Now, in the chat, guys, can you tell if I asked you what is the difference between intonation and pronunciation, would you be able to tell me? Can you make an effort now to think, okay, I'm just going to reply in a concise way to Luke and David, what is intonation and what is pronunciation, even before you address the connected speech thing? Have you ever thought about that? Because normally when we talk about improving your pronunciation or improving your accent, this is how we've called it the accent mastery, because most people understand pronunciation or accent. So is there anybody here who wants to write what is intonation, what is pronunciation? And also, if you know what connected speech is, please write what connected speech mean, right?
Or
So
you can
someone
even
says,
write an example.
right, intonation is the rhythm and pronunciation is more like single words. Excellent. We're getting close to that. Intonation is like
Oh, I like
instrumental
that, Leela.
music apart from lyrics. I like that, Lila. It's a very good description. Intonation is
Yeah.
the rhythm of the
Cool.
language, someone says. Wonder, darling, cool. Very cool name, by the way. For me, pronunciation, Fran says, is moving the mouth, and intonation is the way we use the tone. Very nice description of that. Parameters of sound, Emma Taverna says, are not easy to explain. Musicians have an advantage of that. Intonation is more related to pitch and emphasis. Christian, I'm just reading the first one, the first Christian. Pronunciation, that's correct, Christian. Pronunciation, the mechanical production, whereas intonation is the pitch and tones. And we have a lot of other here. Answers suoni alti, suoni bassi, says Flavio. So ups and ups and downs. Pronunciation is intonation plus separate sounds. Pronunciation, segmental and suprasegmental. We have a lot of, we use the word suprasegmental. Now, this is called,
Great.
in fact, yes, that's exactly right. In fact, in linguistics, it's called, these are suprasegmental features from Latin supra segment. So the segments are the words. Supra means above, because it's basically the pitch of your voice. Now, what does it mean? What is pitch? Pitch is basically, if I say, this is a low pitch, my vocal cords here are vibrating slowly within a unit of time. Or if I say, like you go to the doctor, right? They go like, hey, show me the mouth, right? So that's a high frequency sound where your pitch, where your vocal cords vibrate very quickly. Now, the intonation is basically how a sentence sounds overall, how the pitch of your voice fluctuates and changes along a sentence, right? These are suprasegmental patterns over the segments. So if I'm speaking English right now, so I can show you here visually, if I'm speaking English right now, my pitch is going up and down, right? You can clearly tell. While if my pitch was like this, I would sound like a robot. It would sound very strange to you if the pitch sounds the same. Either I speak like this or I speak like this, I would sound weird, right? So that's intonation. Then going down, connected speech is basically how words merge with one another, because once again, primarily a language is primarily sound, and then we learn also through text, which are very useful, as you will see in a second. But the reality is, sound, like a written text, is a rough representation of what really happens. It gives you the illusion that words are separated, but in fact, as you will see in a second, they are not when they were speaking. And not only that, but they also change. They change pronunciation depending on where they are. For example, in English, modal verb, the class. For example, you have, right? If you say I've done, you can't even hear the H, right? I've done that, because I have, it's not stressed. I've done. Done is a stress. I've done. But if you say I have done that, then it changes completely, because this main stress happens to be on the modal verb, which is not common. And you can tell it's written exactly the same way, but the way you pronounce it is completely different. So there's more to it than meets the eye. It's much more complex than you think, especially in English, but in other languages. Pronunciation is how you mechanically produce the syllables and the letters that make up words, the single words. Now, why are we using this top-down system here? Because if you think about it, this is what children do. We have learned our native language by hearing chunks all around our parents speaking, right? Hey, how's it going? Oh, you hear, oh, how's it going? That's one sound. Your brain starts picking up patterns. What do we do as adults? We do exactly the opposite. We start, classic example is we start with single letters, then syllables, then words, then sentences. This is a recipe for disaster. And this was very clear to me when I started tackling Chinese. What happened is that we were learning visually, so we had these 4 tones, and then we have to repeat each syllable, right? And then we had to put them together. So we have to say zhong, like an example, right? For example, China, you say it's the country in the middle. Zhong is middle. Zhong guo, right? And you can hear this. So first tones followed by a second. Zhong guo. But if you hear it, zhong guo, you just hear zhong guo is China. And this is how children learn. They say, not only do they learn zhong guo, but they hear it in a sentence. And then they extract the pattern. We tend to miss the forest for the trees. We look at the forest, at the tree, each tree, every time. So when I was learning Chinese, it was a recipe for disaster. Every time I wanted to utter a sentence, I was looking at every single tone, pronouncing every single syllable, and at the end of each sentence, I was exhausted. Imagine learning English or any other European language like that. It would be a disaster. I think David agrees, right?
Yeah, I spoke Chinese for the last 3 weeks and
So,
heard lots of examples of foreigners fumbling
yeah,
with
exactly.
with the tones, and not because they weren't capable, because when given a few choice tips, they definitely improved, but because they were trying to do it in exactly the way that Luca was just describing.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys speak Chinese, but I'll give you another example. Whether you speak Chinese or not, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to say this and you're going to repeat it, okay? Repeat it after me. We cannot hear you, but 我是,我是,我是,我是. I'll repeat it 5 times. This means I am in Chinese. 我是. Let's try this experiment. 我是,我是. I'm not telling you which tones. I'm just giving you the sound. Actually, it's a combination of sounds, right? 我是, I am. 我是. 我是. So Chinese children learn 我是中国人, 我是中国人. I am China person. I am Chinese. 我是中国人. And they repeat this and they learn how to say 我是中国人. Then they extract 我是中国人, not the other way around. This is what you're going to see today. So you move from top to bottom, not from bottom. They're called bottom up, right? This is in an engineering lingo, you call bottom up, top down. So let me get into it. I'm going to show you how this works. Let me change here now. I'm going to change the, let me go through that. We're going to see a lot of, we have a lot of questions here. I'm going to show you directly an example. Let me show you here if this works. There you go. You should be able to see that. David, you can see that, right?
Yes.
Okay, our beloved David he's a native English American speaker. He's going to read Ghosts and Goblins and taking it from the Link English library. I've been using this example with my students learning American English for a long time. So we're not going to read the entire text because for the sake of brevity and simplicity, but we're going to give you a demo of what it means to work on a text phonetically. This is called phonetic analysis. David is going to read the text once, and I just want you to listen to it, okay? Just first of all, David, just read it. You guys don't look at the text, just listen to it. Whether your native language is English or not does not matter, right? David is going to read the first time, so just listen to it. Then you're going to read and listen, and then we're going to do something on this text. Okay, David, I'm just going to let you read.
I'm just going to read the first paragraph.
Just close your eyes. I'm going to close my eye too. And you just listen to the sound of English. Okay, American English.
Okay. October 31st is a night for fun and fright. Children of all ages dress up in costumes. There are little girls who dress up as fairies, princesses, ballerinas, and the like. There are little boys who dress up as firefighters, policemen, and superheroes. You also have the children who dress up as furry animals or ghoulish ghosts. One thing is certain. No matter what costume you choose, there is sure to be a lot of candy and chocolate involved on Halloween.
Wonderful, David. Now, um, you just listen to it. That's fine. Now let's listen and read. Now, what's the advantage of that? The advantage is that you can read the text, so you can see the words, but there's more to it, as we say. And what we're going to do, I'm just not going to show you the solution here, but I'm just going to do this. Okay. So David is going to read, and I want you to. He's going to read line by line again, and I'm going to put some phonetic pauses. You've surely noticed that he paused somewhere, right? Or his pitch was going up or was going down in certain parts. So the first step is to break down a text, because a text like this contains a lot of information across these three levels: intonation, connected speech, and pronunciation. It's too much. It's overwhelming. You want to break it down so that first we focus on intonation, then we focus on connected speech, and then we focus on pronunciation. We don't focus on pronunciation from the get-go, and you will see why this is so important. So David is going to read line by line, and I'm going to comment each line and show you where the pause is. First, let's focus where he pauses strategically. Okay, let's get started.
October 31st is a night for fun and fright.
Right, you can see here, October 31st is a night for fun and fright. So he introduces a micro pause here because he's introducing October 31st, which is the subject of Ghosts and Goblins. Let's continue.
Children of all ages dress up in costumes.
Where is the pause here for you? Children of all ages dress up in costumes. Now, you might retort, hey, Luca, but he might have said children of all ages dress up in costumes. Yes, he could have said that, of course. But normally, when we introduce something in the Middle Ages, there's a pause. Today, I want to talk about something really interesting. So we're introducing pauses to breathe, but also you will notice that the pitch is really important when it comes to delivering chunks. So every sentence can be broken down into smaller chunks. Let's continue.
There are little girls who dress up as fairies, princesses, ballerinas, and the like.
You see here, there are little girls. He's introducing once again this is a chunk who dress up as fairies, princesses, ballerinas, and the like. And you will see here that there's a pause because this is a list, right? Whenever you make a list of words, there's always, when you see that corresponds to a comma, there's always a pause. Okay, so this is the almost obvious part, but not so obvious. So there's always a pause when you make a list of words. Okay, let's continue.
There are little boys who dress up as firefighters, policemen, and superheroes.
Okay, same exact pattern, right? There are little boys who dress up as firefighters, policemen, and superheroes.
You also have the children who dress up as furry animals or ghoulish ghosts.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious right now, right? You also have the children who dress up as furry animals or ghoulish ghosts.
One thing is certain. No matter what costume you choose, there is sure to be a lot of candy and chocolate involved on Halloween.
So you can clearly see where he put the pauses. It takes a little bit to get used to this, but this already helps you break down the sound pattern, and the sound pattern corresponds to these are also intonation patterns. So it doesn't only help you in visualizing, let's say, the chunks, but it also helps you in meaning, because syntax, intonation, and meaning, they're all entangled, so to speak. So now that we've broken down these into smaller chunks, we're going to take a look. I guess you can see this. We're going to take a look at this. The looks complicated, but it's not. When it comes to chunks, you have to focus on what happens at the end of the chunk. So if you consider that this is a chunk, so a chunk is just something that happens to be between basically two pauses, right? In this case here, we didn't put a pause at the beginning, but October 31st is just one chunk. Now, I want you to listen to the pitch. October 31st, I'm going up with the pitch because I'm introducing something, right? This stuff here, it's called pitch contour. It's a very fancy sounding word that basically means that your pitch, to simplify, either goes up or goes down. Goes up when you haven't finished. You're signaling to the other person that you haven't finished, like I'm doing right now. And if the pitch goes down, it means you're delivering a piece of information. So if you take a look here, October, I'm going to speak a little bit more slowly so you can see it. October 31st is a night for fun and fright. So here your voice goes down because you finished delivering a sentence, and this happens to be at the end of the chunk. Is a night for fun and fright. Children of all ages goes up because you haven't finished. You're about to say something. You're introducing the subject. Dress up in costumes. Now we put him here because this is the main stress of the word costumes. You go down here and then you stay low. This is called a tail in linguistics. Costumes, right? You can clearly hear the dissyllable is higher. Costume. There's a big fall here. There are little girls who dress up as fairies, princesses, ballerinas, and the like. Falling down. There are little boys who dress up as firefighters, policemen, and superheroes. In this case, once again, the pitch falls on the main stress, superheroes. You also have the children who dress up as furry animals or ghoulish ghosts, falling down. One thing is certain, falling down here again. Here you see, oh, why doesn't he go up with a pitch? Well, in this case, you can go down even within the sentence if you haven't finished. When you're delivering, you want to make sure that you're delivering pieces of information one after the other. So a pitch that goes up kind of connects them phonetically, while a pitch that goes down is like, I'm delivering this piece of information, and I'm giving you the second immediately later. In fact, here you could put a dot here, the way it sounds. One thing is certain, dot here. Period. No matter what costume you choose, going up, there is sure to be a lot of candy and chocolate involved on Halloween. So you can clearly see here that you've broken down the sound. This is like the sound patterns at the macro level, the entire sound structure. We've taken a text, we're leveraging the fact that it's a written text. You can see the words, we've broken them down. It's a fun exercise because you're listening to something, you break it down, and then you just identify whether the pitch goes up or goes down. Now, the thing that counts is that you might be confused about what does it mean going up, going down. I can't hear Luca. It gets really confusing. You can use logic. The pitch goes up. We're talking about English, but this applies to other languages. The pitch goes up if you haven't finished saying something. The pitch normally goes down if you're finished delivering a piece of information. But there's more to it than meets the eye. You can also see here that there are some parts in bold. You see that? Night, fun, fright, October, children, etc., etc. These are the words that contain and convey more, they carry more weight phonetically, right? So there are content words and function words in English. For example, if I write to you, Mark and John go to the beach. Let's
while Luca's writing this, what do all of these words have in common? Or rather, which words, what parts of speech, for native English speakers will be familiar with this, what parts of speech carry the most weight, carry the greatest amount of content? So Mark and John go to the beach, for example.
Mark and John go to the beach. Which are the words that carry more weight here phonetically? They're a little bit louder. Mark and John go to the beach. Mark and John go to the beach. So you can clearly tell that Mark, I'm going to write it here to show you. There you go. So you can clearly tell that Mark, and what do they have in common?
Nouns,
Mark,
very
John,
good. Yes, nouns, beach. Definitely.
Nouns, but also verbs.
Darling, right? Cool. I like that name.
Yeah, so Mark, John, go beach. But you also notice that end to they're unstressed. So that gives the rhythm of the language. English is a time stress language. We're not going to delve into this and accent stress versus, accent versus time stress language for now. But just to give you an idea, this is a simple way to visualize the rhythm of the language and also build it into micro chunks, right? We're dividing something complex into micro chunks. It's a fun exercise to do, and it shows you how language is delivered in packages, in sound packages, right? And then you can just clearly tell where the pitch goes up or goes down. But this is just the receptive part, right? So you go like, okay, Luca, I got this. I'm listening, but what about producing the language? I'm gonna show you now a very simple exercise. I want you to bear with me. Native speakers and non-native speakers are learning English, and I want you to imitate me. I'm gonna say this chunk by chunk, and I want you to follow me. So, for example, when I say October 31st, after I finished, I'm gonna leave a second, and you have time, or a certain amount of time, you have time to say this. But I want you to do the following. You have to speak at the rhythm in which I'm speaking. So I'm deliberately slowing down, and I'm going to read chunk by chunk. In, let's say, they call it 0. On YouTube, you can regulate the speed. When you regulate the speed and the person speaks like this is what we're going to do, okay? And you're going to see how this is going to help you focus on enunciating the words. So you're just repeating sounds, group of sounds, but you're working on your intonation, and at the same time, you're working on your articulation, how much you open your mouth, and you have to open it as I do. Doesn't matter if your native language is American English, or this is going to be particularly useful for people or foreigners whose language is not English, but it doesn't matter. So let's get started. October 31st is a night for fun and fright. Now notice that I don't put, this doesn't sound choppy. I'm not saying is a night for. This is what normally happens. People sound very choppy because nobody has ever taught us to read things this way. So let me say this again. The secret is to be able to slow down but not sound choppy. You have to keep going. Imagine that every syllable is like a step you're taking. You take a step, once you start walking, you can't stop. So you have to keep going, right? So let me say this again. Is a night for fun and fright. Children of all ages, dress up in costumes. There are little girls who dress up as fairies, princesses, ballerinas, and the like. There are little boys who dress up as firefighters, policemen, and superheroes. You also have the children who dress up as furry animals, or ghoulish ghosts. One thing is certain. No matter what costume you choose, there is sure to be a lot of candy and chocolate. Involved on Halloween. Now, if someone is coming right now, they're going to think I'm completely drunk. Probably. They're going to think Luca's gone crazy. It's at the beginning he was speaking with an Italian accent. Now he's speaking like he's drunk. Anyway, first of all, guys, for those who did it, tell me if this felt weird. Did you hear that when you were doing it? Did it feel weird? Did it sound weird, etc.? If your answer is yes, it's a good sign. It means you're getting out of your comfort zone. Now, you might notice that I was reading it slowly. I was enunciating all the words, articulating all the words, but I was not stopping within the chunks. The fact that I had a stop, like a phonetic stop, allowed me to go chunk by chunk. So what normally happens is either we read something very fast and we mumble, it's a mumble jumble, we're not working on neither on articulation nor on intonation. And the other thing is that you can stop, you can break this down. The first important thing is to break things down so that you can see them. That's the advantage. You see them. You break in something complex into something small or smaller, then you have to reproduce it. This is a very simple exercise, but it addresses the intonation, the pronunciation at a systemic level instead of just focusing on the single sounds. We're going to do that later, but for now, it gives you an idea of the top-down approach. You focus on the top first, on the forest, and then we go into the forest itself and we look at the tree of each single tree. Okay. We also have here, as you can see, German. Maybe you can just show you just an example here. So, David, can you read only this paragraph? I'm going to show you how this works for German, Spanish, and then it applies to most languages, including tonal languages.
Exactly, yeah. But especially European languages, let's just say it's easier to hear. For Chinese,
yes,
with the tones and everything, it does work similarly, but there are obviously additional elements that we have to talk about. So, Schule schwänzen fürs Klima. Weltweit demonstrieren Schüler freitags gegen die Klimapolitik, anstatt in die Schule zu gehen. Von vielen Schulen und Politikern werden sie dafür kritisiert. Jetzt stellen sich einige Eltern hinter ihre Kinder.
Yeah, for those who don't speak German, basically this means all over the world students demonstrate on Fridays against climate policy instead of going to school. Many schools and politicians criticize them for this. Now some parents are backing their children. So this is the first paragraph here, and you can clearly tell, right? Weltweit, let me show you the Lösung here. You have the Lösung is the solution. Weltweit, so worldwide, you're introducing, you start with an adverb. Weltweit demonstrieren Schüler freitags gegen die Klimapolitik. Going up, we haven't finished. They're demonstrating against the Klimapolitik instead of, if I had just said this sentence here, weltweit demonstrieren Schüler freitags gegen die Klimapolitik, then I would have just ended the sentence there. But here I'm continuing because I said instead of going to school. Anstatt in die Schule zu gehen, and you have a big fall here, in die Schule, instead of going to school. Now you will notice that in German, you have the noun can be inside the sentence in this case. So basically it's instead to school to go. And the main stress is on Schule. Anstatt in die Schule zu gehen.
In die Schule zu gehen.
In die Schule zu gehen, right? It's not anstatt in die Schule zu gehen. It's also in die Schule zu gehen. In die Schule zu gehen. Von vielen Schulen und Politikern, and then you have going up from a lot of schools and politicians, werden sie dafür kritisiert. They're getting criticized and you're kind of fallen kritisiert. Jetzt stellen sich einige Eltern, so some parents are, stellen sich einige Eltern going up hinter ihre Kinder, behind their children. They're like putting themselves behind their children, literally. So you can see that you can do exactly the same. You can start reading weltweit demonstrieren Schüler freitags gegen die Klimapolitik and so weiter and so forth. So this means that if you want to improve your pronunciation, you address this. This is a way of addressing intonation, articulation, enunciation, pronunciation of the single words. But that's not enough, of course. This is just the beginning, but this is an important part. Okay, so we start with intonation. We don't start from pronunciation. We look at the macro structure of the language itself. All right, so let's get back to our slides here. And let's continue. So what we've done here is basically intonation patterns, chunks, pitch, and flow, right? Break into chunks, analyze intonation, and read the text out loud for yourself. Because one thing is seeing, another thing is producing. One thing is hearing and seeing. Another thing is actually producing the sounds, right? So it's a circular system. You hear in a smart way, because some people might say, well, Luca, this sounds very complicated. You're going to put in all those errors and stuff. But what if we just shadow? What if I just imitate? That's fine. I'm not saying the shadowing is a bad technique, but here you have a deeper understanding. You're not just only imitating. You're getting a better vision of the overall structure, how it's broken down into chunks. It's easy. You can do it with a pencil. This is what I do all the time. I have a text, and what I do is I simply just break the text down with a single pencil here. Just really easy, and it's fun to do. And I put the arrows up. People were asking me, for example, within the academy, what are you doing with this stuff when I do the Turkish, when I was doing this Turkish session? And it's just phonetic analysis, paying attention to chunks and pitch. And it will make, I have my own comment here. Yeah, someone said it sounded weird. Yes, it has to. If it sounds weird, that's a great sign. All right, so let's continue. David, you can address this part, the connected speech and the single sounds.
Precisely. So it was very important, if you noticed, that as Luca was saying, even when he was speaking at 0.75 speed, he was still connecting all of the elements within a particular chunk. And we noticed this right away when you have words like for or words like to in English, which when they're not stressed, they become for and to, right? Well, that's for you. We don't say that's for you unless we are stressing the word for, right? That's for you. That's for you, right? As native speakers, we usually don't even notice that we're doing this, right? So we don't say, what do you want, but rather, what do you want, right? This happens in every language. I work with German students primarily, and one of the biggest things that we work on right away at the beginning is ich habe, which is never ich habe, but rather ich hab. Ich hab doesn't sound almost anything like ich habe, and instead of habe ich, it's hab ich, right? This is what we call connected speech. It's what native speakers of every language do every single day. Je ne sais pas in French, Luca, would be
Je sais pas.
Right?
Plus this.
Je suis pas would be
Je suis pas.
Right?
Je sais pas.
How native speakers talk. And if we don't take this into consideration, A, we're never going to sound natural, and B, we're not going to understand when people are talking, because we're going to expect that someone says je ne suis pas, but almost no one will ever say that unless they're teaching a class, a French class, right? Or they're really trying to emphasize for whatever reason. So mastering connected speech and noticing connected speech in the first place is incredibly important to sounding natural in any language. And here are some examples from various languages that I'm sure that we're sure that you guys are learning. English, for example.
Yeah, you do the English. No, well, you can do the English and German. I'll do the Italian and French.
I can do the English, yeah. So let's take the first one here. We have an example of elision, where we're dropping the middle consonant. So when we say the next day, we almost never say the T in next. It's not the next day, but rather the next day, the next day, next day. Notice that I'm not saying that T at all. Why? Because we have a T and a D, one right after the other, and the T essentially becomes deleted. In the word combination old man, we almost never say old man, but rather old man, old man. I'm not actually saying the D at all. Then we have examples of assimilation like green park, green park. Now, in this case, what we have is a regressive assimilation of the labiality of the P. So the P is labial, it's bilabial, and we're going to talk a little bit about this later. Park, I'm putting my lips together, park, and green, the N is alveolar, N, N. But what's happening is that because the P follows the N, the labiality, bilabiality of the P is regressively assimilating onto the N, such that it becomes M, an M, green park, green park. You say it fast, it happens automatically. Native speakers don't think about this at all. You just do it automatically, but it is something that you can get better at by paying attention to what native speakers are doing. Then we have red paint, red paint. And I'm not saying red paint, but rather red paint. And then the last one is don't you wish you go from
Don't you love me, baby?
Is the best example.
This is another, by the way, this is another thing we do when we're in Poland. Like there's just one chunk of language that can trigger the entire song, right? So don't you
Exactly.
love me?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, forget about that.
Anyway, okay, moving on.
Yeah. So yeah,
Italian.
I'll do the Italian. So one thing I wanted to add when it comes to English, since I'm not a native speaker, I used to say this is a common problem that Italians have when they speak English, because once again, like now you pronounce everything that you see. I used to say, for example, bomb, plumber, and climb, but the B is silent in English. So you have plumber, climb, and bomb, right? But in Italian, we'll look at bomb, B-O-M-B, and we'll pronounce the B. Well, this is silent, just one of the many things. English is an amazingly complex language when it comes to phonetics. Anyway, Italian, here we have raddoppiamento fonosintattico. So for example, a casa, you can see here, we don't say a casa, we say a casa. Che fai, double F, che fai, è vero. We don't say è vero. We say è vero. Native speakers don't even realize that. È vero.
Exactly.
In bocca, instead of in bocca. Notice that it's really difficult to say in bocca. We say in bocca. The M is easier. In bocca. Un po', instead of un po'. We don't say un po'. We say un po'. That's the M. But people don't even notice because they think un po' is U-N, but it's un po'. San Paolo, same thing. The N becomes an M. San Paolo. This might be even surprising to Italians. Or another example is il re. If I say il re, the king, it's difficult to say il re because L followed by an R is difficult. Il re. So we say il re. It's a double R. This is the same thing that happens in Spanish. La rodillas.
Same thing in Spanish.
So la rodillas is the knees. So you don't say las rodillas. You say la rodillas. The R becomes a double R. And then
I noticed that in the my first week in Spain. I distinctly remember noticing that native speakers were dropping that S.
Exactly.
Right?
La rodillas.
But you guys can learn how to do this. You can learn how to notice these kinds of things.
That's exactly right. And then I'll go to French, and then you can finalize this with German. So in French, encore une fois, you get the je te le dis, je te le dis. So say je te le dis. Nobody would say in the right mind in France would say je te le dis. That would be taken for like a marquis. Je te le dis, je te dis. In French, they say tu sais quoi? No, the spoken language is very different from how you see it written. Tu ne sais pas. Nobody says tu ne sais pas. Tu sais pas. Tu sais pas. Tu sais pas. Tu sais pas. Médecin. Look at this. The last one, assimilation.
Yeah.
So we have assimilation, elision. There's a lot of these things. Médecin. Le médecin. See? Médecin. 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 TC. And we can finish this with German. David, your favorite language.
Yeah, as I said, with ich habe, we usually say ich hab. If it's ich habe es, it's ich hab's, right? Ich hab's. You could say both thinkably, depending on the ich hab's. If you're trying to stress the fact that you have it, ich hab's, then you would say ich hab's. But if you weren't stressing the ich, you'd say ich hab's. Ich hab's zu Hause. I have it at home. Ich hab's zu Hause. Nicht wahr. We don't say nicht wahr. Nicht wahr. Nicht wahr. And oftentimes even the va is just written as W-A. Then with guten Morgen, this one's quite interesting because if I just say guten by itself, guten, you can see that I'm already kind of tending towards that M, but what's happening with the T, it's being swallowed. It's a glottal stop, guten. And you can tell foreigners right away when they say guten and they actually pronounce the T. Almost never do that. So guten Morgen, right? This is how it actually sounds when native speakers say it. From the north anyway. Okay, and then unglaublich. I'm not saying unglaublich, but rather and the N is becoming a velar unglaublich, right? Automatically, because once again, we have this regressive assimilation from the G, the velar aspect of the G.
Love it, David. You're very technical. I love that. Okay, so you've seen the connected speech in different languages, English, Italian, German, French. We can't put those here, but we will later. We're going to show you what we're going to do. Step number 3, individual words. So again, going back to what we were saying before, you start from the top, you go towards the bottom. So you have the same sentence, how it sounds overall, then you go into chunks, then you go into connected speech, how within those chunks words they get attached, they connect with one another, hence connected speech, the term. And now we are going to delve into the wonderful world of individual words, which is what normally people go for. Oh, I'm just going to pronounce each word. I'm going to learn how to pronounce each word, which is not a good way of addressing pronunciation and accent. It's the last step. Okay, so we have zoom in last. We can use this chunking or the syllable level. Now, raise your hands, guys, if you know how to dissect any word into its single components, that is syllables. Have you ever used, for example, a syllable breaker on YouTube, on the internet? And you know how to break it down into syllables. In Italy, they teach us to do that, and it's a very important thing for the brain, because once again, as you can break down a sentence into chunks, you can break down a word into its constituents, which are syllables, and syllables are made of single sounds, right? So that's a very important skill that you should develop if you don't have it, of breaking down words into single components, right? And we're going to do that right now. David, you can read the first one. It's a lot of it's a long word. So let's take a long word, right? But this applies to anything.
Mm-hmm. So the word here would be incomprehensibilities.
Right? Let's say this
not
again.
exactly a word that you say every day for breakfast, but it is a real word.
Well, we could use even incomprehensible. It's the same concept.
Incomprehensible.
It's this
Incomprehensible.
But here, you can hear that there's a pitch there, right? Incomprehensibilities. Okay. So it's important to do the syllable chunking. Try to repeat it after me. Incomprehensibilities. Incomprehensibilities, right? Let's read the second one. This is in French. Just another one here is anticonstitutionnellement. Let's repeat it. Doesn't matter if you speak French or not. Anticonstitutionnellement, right? You can hear, you can break it down. It's a very long word. If you hear it for the first time, you're going to say, oh my God, I ain't never going to pronounce that. But then you can actually do that. Let's say this again. Even if you can't do the nasal sound, doesn't matter. Anticonstitutionnellement. Anticonstitutionnellement. Okay? So when you read, for example, a text, you're going to mess up the pronunciation of words. It does not matter, but you can take some words in which you have maybe a hard time pronouncing, and then you can break it down this way, and you can read it from left to right, but you can also read it from right to left, right, David? It's called back chaining.
Absolutely. Exactly. And this is incredibly useful if you find yourself fighting with a word. So what we do is we start from the back and then we add syllables. So if we take, for example, incomprehensibilities, the word from the beginning, and we start with the T's at the end, T's, abilities, stabilities. We obviously want to make sure the stress is where it should be in the full word. Hensibilities, incomprehensibilities. Now, this is particularly useful if you're fighting with long German words. In German, we have lots of long German words like Hochschulzugangsberechtigung, right? That's in order to study at university, you need to have the right to study at university, and that's what that refers to. Hochschulzugangsberechtigung. And unfortunately, a lot of students who go to Germany, it's one of the first words that they need. And so they find themselves fighting with this word. But you can use this method, back chaining, to break down that word and master it in a vacuum before trying to use it in the real world.
Wonderful. And now let's do a fun exercise, guys. You can see here the entire sounds like mouth phonatory system. Well, this is just one part because the phonatory system is also includes the throat and the lungs. But let's once again use English just to show you here. Just make sure that you when you say it, repeat after me. So we're going to say the single sound, and then we're going to say the just one word that contains a sound. And here you will see where these sounds, like where they're produced, the exact position. Let's start. P, right? Here, P. This is pronounced here. P, the lips, for example, spy or pit, P. It happens here. You should be able to see this. It happens exactly at the forefront. Then you have B of baby, B, slightly a little bit here inside, but always in correspondence to the lips. B, baby, M, man. It happens here. Wood, it a little bit here in the mouth. Fall, you can see here that it's not very visible. Maybe the definition of exactly post.
If you should be able to zoom in actually, but what's important is that the red ones are bilabial, meaning that they use both lips, P, B, M, so P, B, M, W are all bilabial. And the orange are labiodental, so they use a combination of lip and tooth. So, and V, if you pronounce and V like fall and very, notice that your teeth, your bottom teeth are on your top lip. So you're combining your teeth with your lip, labiodental. B and B. Yeah.
So let's do this fun exercise so you can hear how when you're producing these sounds, repeat after me, you're gonna feel it in your mouth. P, P, pit, B, baby, M, man, W, wood, fall, F, fall, V, very, F, thought, breathe, V, breathe. That one is top, T, dad, D, going back with the tip of your tongue. Sad, S, sad. Z, zebra or zebra, Z, butter. This is an interesting one. Butter, N, butter. Flat, butter. Right? Butter. Nope, N, going up. L, light, L, R. This is an interesting one. Red.
Yeah.
Should. Asia, J. G, yes, G. K, cat, cat. G, going down. You see here, going down here. Go. Sing, N. This is the palate, the soft palate pronounced. Sing, N. Happy, H. Aha. This is the glottal stop. Okay? You can hear it in the sound. You can hear it literally in the throat. This is just to give you an idea. This is a fun exercise.
Just a moment, Luca. I think that can everyone see our video? That is to say, can you see Luca and myself? Please confirm.
I think so.
Because I think you went into full screen mode, and I'm not sure whether our video feeds are still visible. If someone could please confirm or deny. Okay,
no, I only see the slide.
They can only see the slides.
Interesting.
So I think you're still in full screen mode. One fun activity to do here. We're going to provide the slides to everybody. Is to pronounce the first letter or the first sound in each category, so in each color category, and feel how your tongue is moving back in your mouth. So if I say the P, F, then TH, T, R, so then you can actually feel your tongue moving backwards, and then you can go in the other direction, right? To really get a feel for each one of these. Okay, now it looks like our video is back. Really get a feel for where because when we talk about place of articulation, what that really means is where your tongue, usually where your tongue is, where the constriction is taking place within the mouth. So this is something that you can practice to really get a feeling for your articulatory apparatus, because it's incredibly important that you are intimately familiar with your articulatory apparatus if you want to improve your accent systematically.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. So, you handsome devils.
You handsome devils.
I love it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about self-management as well, because this is important. Now, people might go like, okay, maybe this looks interesting. When do you have to do this? How do you have to do it, et cetera, et cetera? This is kind of important. The critical questions you have to ask yourself is, how much time do you need? How often should you practice? What exactly should you do? So a lot of people start with a lot of enthusiasm, and then it just tapers off, or like falls flat in its face, because you have to make it systematic. When it comes to language learning, skill development, whatever, accent training, etc., if you don't do this for a sustained, our students at the Academy have seen this. They're starting to see incredible results. They're showing, some student who's here, they can testify to that. They started making videos of them speaking in a matter of 40 days because they do it every single day. So when you start doing something every single day, you start actually reaping the benefits of doing something systematically. Same goes for accent training, or accent, if you want to improve your pronunciation, intonation or not. 10 minutes a day are 10 minutes. We're not asking for like 2 hours. 10 minutes are really important. So my suggestion is to build this into your routine. For example, if you spend 30 minutes a day listening and reading, or doing some, podcast, or you're watching videos, then either at the beginning or at the end, you can do this accent training with a simple text. You can take a simple text, for example, a paragraph or 2 paragraphs, 1 minute, we'll show you in a second, and then you do this exercise of breaking the text you listen, break it down with a pencil. So you can use an iPad, or you can use a piece of paper, and you do this exercise, which is deliberate training. It can lead to optimal results if you do it every single day for at least 30 days. So what we're asking here, and this goes back to the commitment that we had asked at the beginning, is a 10-minute daily pronunciation workout for the next week. We're not asking for much. You want to get into the habit of doing that. Take a text, short text. It can be 1 minute, 2 minutes. You listen and you read simultaneously. You first listen to it, then you listen and read. You break it down into chunks. You don't even need to put all these arrows, goes up, goes down. Just divide it into chunks. That's the simplest thing you can do. And then once you mark up the text, practice out loud the way I've just shown you, just by reading, speaking at 0.75 speed, slowing down and making sure that you're reading like you're connecting the chunks. So a chunk is one sound. Of course, it's not going to be easy. You're going to sound sloppy at the beginning, but I can guarantee you that if you do it every day for a week, and then you like it, and say, oh, I like this stuff, and you do it more, this is the beginning of something great. It's one thing, of course. It's just one. There's much more to it than meets the eye. We're barely scratching the surface here, but we can guarantee you that this can be very beneficial for you. Now, a couple of other things to conclude, and then we can answer your questions. The key takeaways of this is that psychology trumps mechanics. You have to remember that. I have to put the mouth here, there. Fine, that's great, but psychology is the most essential, quintessential factor here at play. Strategy beats effort. Once again, 10 minutes of focused strategic practice, deliberate practice is much better than hundreds of hours just listening and trying to imitate. It's, of course, beneficial, but it's not enough. Start at the top, master the music, top down, master the music and rhythm of the sentences by listening to chunks. You want to identify chunks and how they sound over individual sounds. Then you can work on individual sounds as well, because that is important. You have to understand the mechanics of producing the sounds, and you can work on that. Consistency, once again, is everything. If you do this consistently, 10 minutes a day, 5-10 minutes a day, you really reap the benefits. Most people do not do that. And then feedback guides progress. If you can record your voice, you can send it. For example, David and I have been doing this for over 10 years with my students. I take, for example, the recordings and I break them down and I tell them exactly what to work on when it comes to connected speech, pronunciation. We make a full analysis. Most native speakers do not know. If you send a message to a native speaker, go, hey, can you correct my pronunciation? They don't know where to start, right? Because they don't know your native language. They don't understand the difference between the native, the carryover system, et cetera, et cetera. But there are trainers out there who can do an excellent job, and you can do a lot by yourself, because if you do this exercise, you're going to realize a lot of things. Try for yourself, speak more slowly and read it this way, and you're going to start noticing things. Oh, I don't sound exactly like that guy who's reading. Why? I pronounce this, mispronounce this. So there's a lot you can do by yourself, but you also, if you want to really reach the upper echelons of your native sounding pronunciation or having a great accent, you also need a little bit of feedback. I've never known anybody, I've never met anyone who speaks a language with a native-like accent who hasn't received at least a little bit of feedback. I've been making a lot of mistakes when it comes to pronunciation, but I still remember when my American friend, for example, corrected I said circuit instead of circuit, and many other examples where I got corrected and I improved on the fly, so this is important. And last but not least, and this is what we wanted to tell you, this is for Black Friday. Hasn't started yet, but Black Friday basically has already started. We have put together a pronunciation masterclass. Now let me show you let me show you more in detail this. So let me show you here what we have put together. So you've seen this is just barely scratching the surface. We have 9 days. This is gonna exactly like this webinar. It's going to not going to be available. It's only going to be available for the next 9 days. Here you have the landing page, which, by the way, I'm going to share here so you can see it. There we go. And then we're going to open the floor to your questions. So click on that if you're interested. Let me see if it shares on the chat. You should be able to see that. Can you guys see it on the chat? I am not sure. Yes, it should be visible.
See it in the chat.
It's there. You can click on it and check for yourself. I'm going to share this on the screen. Basically, these are Elliot is an amazing guy. I worked with him for quite a while. He speaks 9 languages. He's a famous magician in China. He speaks wonderful Chinese, and I think by far he's the best student I've ever had. And he was specifically very interested in pronunciation, and now he's made a career out of magic and languages. And then you have two girls who worked with David. David, by the way, is, apart from being a very nice guy, he's also polyglot, but he's also an accent trainer. That's why he uses all this technical jargon when it comes to labial, velar, etc.
I know a thing or two.
You know a thing or two about pronunciation. Here we see the accent paradox, why effort doesn't equal results. The problem is that if you don't know how to do things, quality always beats quantity. So you have the old way, you're paralyzed by fear, drilling isolated sounds, stuck with fossilized errors. You want to build confidence. Remember the accent trick. Once again, I want to insist on this mindset, your mental approach, your confidence are really important, but also then you can, muster language chunks, dynamic sound flexibility. You want to develop the flexibility to correct yourself on the go. Once again, here in this masterclass, we're going to go much deeper than we've done today. So we're going to address the mindset, the psychology, the self-management, and the top-down skill system, showing you exactly what we do and across many other languages. So, why this works is that we've been working on this over the last 10 years, and we've been practicing this over 30 years, learning foreign languages. Again, we're not gurus. It's a lifestyle. Speaking languages also with a great accent is a lifestyle. And then you get the complete system, the Black Friday exclusive. You have the lifetime access to 2-hour masterclass. So this is gonna, if you get it, the offer is gonna be available for the next 9 days. But then you have access to the 2-hour masterclass, and this is the value of €149. You have the complete visual blueprint deck. So you have basically the in-depth slides that we're going to share in the masterclass. And you have the value here of €59. And then we have, and this is probably the most important part, the 30-day accent transformation roadmap. And the value here is €99. What does it mean? Well, you have a complete roadmap of what to do over 30 days. And once you've learned that, well, you can do it for the rest of your life if you want. The total value here is €307. But for this Black Friday, we're going crazy, and you can get it for €49. So you save basically 84% of the price. And this is a very special offer. And for those who are interested or wondering, okay, what if I don't like it? What if I'm not satisfied? You have a 14-day confident voice guarantee. So you purchase the masterclass, you don't like it within 14 days, no questions asked, you're going to refund the money. And then here you have the FAQs. Is this for any language? Yes, it's for any language. I'm learning a tonal language, Mandarin Chinese. Is this for me? Yes, it applies to that. We're going to show you. how to deal with tones, semitonal languages, and many other things. What level is this for? This is designed for all learners, basically. But if you're about to learn a language, you're a beginner in a language, even better. And then here you have many other questions that you might probably have. I'm over 50. Can I improve my accent? And the answer is yes. And here you have a few other questions that you might have in your mind, and we're addressing all those there. So this is it, guys. Wait, let me stop the recording. So if you are interested, that's the link. You have 9 days, and then we're going to take this down. The webinar also is going to be available for the next 7 days, actually 8 days until next Sunday. We hope you liked this presentation. This is barely scratching the surface, just barely. We're very fascinated about this. So Lila says, is this a recorded class, not live? No, it's live. It's live. So we're gonna go live on the 7th of December. So the 7th of December, it's gonna be a live class. So there's gonna be exactly like this Q&A. So the entire presentation, plus you're gonna have a Q&A, plus you're gonna have the space on Teachable. So you have the recording. You will ask questions inside and also later. So it's gonna be awesome. For all those who want to sign up, it's available.
It is gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be awesome. We got our friend here. Why do some accents sound so cool and others so hideous? Can you help me? Can you help me make my accents?
Well, that's very subjective, Mr. Comunicación.
Mr. Comunicación. Okay, so thank you. Someone says, awesome presentation. Thank you. If this is awesome, you're going to see what the masterclass entails. We're taking questions now, so please do. And we're going to ask questions. Again, we've been going on for 1 hour, 45 minutes. We're going to be respectful of your time. But so we're going to go for probably 30 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes, and then we're going to call it quits. People already have questions about the masterclass. Is this presentation? No, this is barely scratching the surface. This is just like when you go to dinner and you just get the hors d'oeuvre, you get the appetizers, but the best part is in the masterclass. Someone asks, is $49 US? No, it's in euro. And I think in dollars, I don't know, probably $60 possibly, but I can tell you that for 49 euro is a bargain, because it's a very low price for what you get for this masterclass. If you have any specific questions about the masterclass, let me know. Grazie Luca, sempre utile ascoltarti, è bello rivederti. Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much. How to fix...
Stephen has an interesting question. He says, what about Hindi and Kannada?
Where is it?
I don't know very much about Kannada. I heard that in my linguistics study program. That's also a Dravidian language, an Indic language. Okay, so the principles that we will teach you, you'll be able to use for almost any language. And one of the things that we'll be showing you is how to actually do research on the particular sound. So Indic languages are famous for having lots of retroflex sounds. What that means is that your tongue is pointed back. So you have a D, right? So
what are you talking about? Like
day instead of, I'm sorry?
That's why Indians speak like this. What are you talking about? Because
this is that is the reason, right? It's the reason why it sounds like this is because the tongue is pointed back while I'm talking, right?
Yeah.
There's a specific reason why it sounds like that, right? And so once you know that that's what's going on, that your tongue is pointed back, that it doesn't matter what it's called, that it's called retroflex. As long as I know that my tongue is pointed back, and if I want to sound like that, I need to point my tongue back, then you can actually start to work on sounding more authentic by doing precisely that.
Which is
so,
for example, 人, 中国人,
ren.
Like this is
exactly.
It's a like a 中国, This is a retroflex, ren. And in Chinese, these are retroflex sounds, especially in the Beijing area. They sound very
I've even heard native speakers pronounce the r in ren more like a r in Russian, like zhen, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of can even fluctuate between the two.
Exactly.
These are the kinds of things, the kind of observations that Luca and I are used to making. We're kind of knee deep in the science of this, and we can help you to analyze your target language or languages.
Yes, exactly. Someone asks also, these principles work the same with pitch accent languages like Japanese or with tonal languages? Yeah, pitch accent is a specific case. Japanese has pitch accent. We're not going to explain this here what it means, but yes, we're going to address that one too. And tonal languages. So in the masterclass, we're going to go much deeper into European languages, of course, but also tonal languages. So if you're learning a tonal language, how do you address that? How do you work? We're going to have exercises on how to work with tones, for example, and also you know, a language like Japanese, which has a specific system. Every language has its quirks, so to speak. It has very specific quirks when it comes to intonation, pronunciation, and whatnot. So someone says, I'm quite interested in that. I'm glad to hear that. We had questions also at the beginning, by the way, but in general, let me see here. We got another question. Now we have a lot of questions here. Based on this unlearning concept, would you say that English speakers have to unlearn how to pronounce any new language, given the fact that they learn to pronounce in a very different way? I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe David, you can answer that.
I think he might be referring to the fact that English is not a particularly phonic language. So if I'm right about what you mean, the problem is there's not a one-to-one between the way that words are written and obviously letters and sounds in English. Whereas native speakers of other languages like Spanish, for example, they usually have a one-to-one between a letter and a sound. And that obviously has its advantages. On the other hand, Spanish, for example, only has 22 sounds and English has over 40. So as a native speaker of English, phonetically, you actually have an advantage because you already can produce more sounds than, for example, a native speaker of Spanish. These are all things that we will most definitely talk about, but let's just say that native English speakers they most certainly stand to benefit quite a bit from this type of analysis because our language is so off the wall in terms of the relationship between the way that you write and the way that you speak.
Yes, exactly. Lila asks, is there a coupon code for the discount? This is already a very discounted price. So that's that. But we wanted to simplify your life. Instead of having a discount, this is already the discounted price only for these 9 days for Black Friday. And I don't think we're gonna have this masterclass again for this year. So this is the one chance to get this masterclass now. Lila says, gotcha. Okay, how does this build some language language muse, sorry. How does this build on the phonetic analysis?
I also thought it said Gemüse.
Yeah, Gemüse, because this is Obst und Gemüse. Yeah, this is the tricky part of language muse, because we saw the Gemüse instead of language. To answer your question, the phonetic analysis is part of the BDT. So for those who do not know, out of context, bidirectional translation, I talk about phonetics and breaking down chunks, etc. But in this masterclass, we go much deeper into also single languages. In the phonetic analysis, within the BDT, we talk about this, but this masterclass goes much more in depth and includes a lot of other things, instruments that you can use. Once again, there's much more to it than meets the eye. We haven't even showed you. Someone was asking, hey, can you use AI? You can use a lot of phonetic tools. You can use, for example, tools to show you how the mouth works in real time, or even use the entire phonatory system from the front vowels, because we have, once again, the mouth as a resonator. How do you produce vowels in front, mid, in the back, etc.? And you have amazing tools. We haven't talked about IPA, for example, the International Phonetic System. You can use that if you want, but there are other ways of, other tools to develop pronunciation, accent, intonation, etc. How long is this course in weeks? So this is a very good question. This is not a course, or better said, this is a masterclass. So it's a one event. It's going to last 2.5 hours, but then you get, once again, the recording, you get the slides, you get the PDF that contains the entire 30-day system, plus then since you have lifetime access to the recording, you can ask questions within that space, and you also have access to the community, because everybody who buys any product gets access to the headquarters. But this is not like the workshop that we've done. So it's not a 3-week or 4-week courses we did with the workshop. So the workshop is one thing, and it lasted a month. This is a one-time event where you get access, then you get permanent access to the content, and you can ask questions within the content, of course, below the video that is going to be available for you at all times. That's an important question and an important distinction. Then, if there's enough interest, we can, of course, build an entire workshop. For example, people go crazy like, oh, this is amazing. David, Luca, we want an entire workshop of a month with a challenge attached to it. Then we're all ready. Then this is the fun part. So, and this is what we're actually running with the MC. First, with the workshop, we're running challenges, and people love them, myself included, and David as well. So, Lila said, just sign up. I can't wait. Thank you. Who are your main gurus within SLA research and pronunciation? This is an interesting question. My guru is David. You know why? I've read quite a lot of stuff when it comes to, especially back in the day, about pronunciation. I even have a very interesting book about phonetics and phonology, which are different, by the way. Phonetics and phonology, not the same thing, but we're not getting technical here. But I think my heroes are those who are able to combine theory with practice. And I think David is the perfect example who's got the best of both worlds, because he's got the practice, but he also has the theory. So, it's interesting how some linguists, for example, phoneticians, understand phonetics in depth, but maybe they're not able to speak multiple languages, maybe one, maybe two. David is able to do that. I have also, I think I know a thing or two about phonetics because I've been teaching it, especially American English, but also French, Spanish, German, Russian. And once again, in this masterclass, you're going to see, specific languages. We're gonna work together. Which language you want us to show you? It's also going to be specific, language specific. I'm going to show you a wide range of languages and how to work on those. Plus, we're going to, of course, give you feedback. What else? I only practice accent in the shower. Best for fluidity. Okay. This is a question.
Having a good time here.
Sharpening accents while in the shower. Well, this might sound actually like a weird question, but it's not. I speak with myself all the time. I do accents all the time. This is one of the most important things to say and specify, that I not only do accents, but I change accents. I play with words. I play with accents all the time. Another famous polyglot who goes by the name of Richard Simcott, he's very famous. He does this all the time. We play when we're together with Richard, with David. This is the one thing that I've noticed with people who are very good with accents. They derive pleasure in producing sounds. All these sounds that happen in your mouth and producing these sounds is so nice, and I happen to love it. I think, once again, a psychological.
I spent the last 3 weeks in Taiwan traveling, and I was at a language business retreat and the Polyglot Conference, and I stayed in Taipei with 6 other polyglots, accomplished polyglots, and we did this all day, every day. Probably anybody else would have gone nuts because we were constantly playing with pronunciation, playing with sound, playing with words and things like that. But if you want to get good at this kind of stuff, then you just start doing it. Like Luca said, just start talking to yourself, start playing around with it, and obviously go outside of your comfort zone. That's the most important thing. If you have difficulty going outside of your comfort zone, make fun of yourself, or you could do this by yourself. Make fun of an accent, really over exaggerated, and we'll talk about this more obviously in the actual masterclass. But making fun of something is one of the best ways to really over-exaggerate. And when you over-exaggerate, you automatically go outside of your comfort zone. And that's exactly what you need to be doing in order to improve.
Love it, David. Thank you. By the way, someone asks, do you guys, wait, let me read this question here. You said, Brian said, you advertised an offer in a recent email for 70% off a course, and there was no coupon code to apply. Does this Black Friday offer the same course but already discounted? If you click on this link that I'm showing in the chat, this is our website. As of now, all courses are 50% off, but also in this newsletter, you're getting a special discount. So everything is already discounted. There are no coupons. The prices are already heavily discounted, including, of course, and I'm going to share this again, this masterclass the pronunciation masterclass, which is going to happen on the 6th of December. It's going to happen on a Saturday, not on a Sunday. This is important to stress. 6th of December at 10 p.m. at 6 p.m. Rome time as always. So this is the masterclass, the pronunciation masterclass. But once again, we are running offers. All courses are discounted if you are interested in any other evergreen course that we have. But the masterclass, the pronunciation masterclass, is one-time event. It's going to last 2.5 hours. We're going to go through all the stuff you've seen and more, with more examples of specific languages. Today, for the sake of brevity and simplicity, we just showed you a couple of languages, but there it's gonna be more practical, the demo stuff. That's the fun part. Well, plus interaction with you guys, because it's gonna happen in Zoom, and so you can ask questions, we can do drills, etc. It's gonna be fun. I think this is it. I see there's a couple of other questions. Let me see. Someone said, do you guys think that understanding people in real life is easier than, for example, in movies? Even though my listening is good, some actors in some movies or TV, they mumble a lot or way too fast. I think it depends on the movie, it depends on the actor. I think people speak in movies like in real life, although there's, of course, the dialogues are scripted, but it gives you a very good idea of how people interact in real life. So if you want to get a sample or many samples of how language really sounds in real life, well, watch a lot of movies. And by the way, one of the ways in which I have learned to speak American English the way I do now was this famous 10-minute rehearsal session after the movie. So I watched a movie and then I was just like constantly reciting the lines for 10, 15 minutes and after the movie. So I just had a lot of fun, and I kept doing that over and over. And then I know some parts of movies by heart. What they say, how they say it, the facial features, the co-speech gestures, and everything in between. Anyway, so David's got a smirk on his face when he slightly changed the accent. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming.
Thank you to everyone for being with us.
This once again, this webinar is going to stay online until Monday, and then we're going to take it down. Someone asked for the slides. Unfortunately, we're not going to provide slides for this one, but you're going to have the slides for the masterclass if you sign up for it. And once again, you have a refund policy. If you don't like it, you're not satisfied, you can always say, hey, give me the money back. Thank you very much, guys. Have a fantastic weekend. It's always very good to be with you with all the wonderful questions and the enthusiasm. Keep rocking. 2026 is near. It's getting closer and closer. We have very good, actually amazing things coming your way. We will also divulge the news through the newsletter. So if you can, and I'm just going to share this one more time here, sign up to the masterclass, but also sign up to the newsletter, because it's where we're going to announce the next language learning revolution. Here we go. I just shared one more time the link to the pronunciation masterclass. Take a look. It's going to be around for it's going to be available for 9 days for sale. Thank you very much. Once again, have a fantastic weekend and happy language learning to you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice one. Ciao, ciao.
Have a nice one. Ciao, ciao.